The other prediction that I made at the start of 24 is that we were going to lose a music streaming service. This prediction, I am pleased to say, is false. Although I would say that Tidal laying off 25% of their employees does suggest that it's pretty tough out there, especially when you have two companies involved in it who essentially can't go bust.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Phil Hinton and I'm joined by AVForums HiFi Editor Ed Selley, and we're going to recap over the trends and developments in the two-channel hi-fi world from 2024. But first, we got a message from our sponsor, MPB.
The power to tell a story is in us all. The power to change the way we feel, our understanding, change the rules, how we see ourselves, provoke, change history. Together, let's change the bigger picture. Change access. Put camera gear in more hands and keep the story going. Buy, sell, and trade used camera gear. MPB.
And our thanks to MPB for sponsoring this show. So, Ed, we made some pretty bold predictions at the beginning of the year and where we thought things were going to go. And of course, things have changed over the year. We've seen lots of progression in different areas of the hi-fi world. So what stood out for you? What's been the big hi-fi story of 2024 in your opinion?
This is I would say this is a developing story, that it's not complete yet. It's a news as we get it undertaking. Right at the start of this, I was talking about the rise of powered speakers and active speakers. And I'll be honest, the actual number that we looked at across the year wasn't significantly higher than previous years, but it is creeping up. And more than simply creeping up, they're appearing at price points which are incredibly diverse. We looked at a pair of Fluence floor standers, which were an absolute bargain, couple of £100. We've got our Christmas long form review, which I've yet to write. Spoiler, but I know what it is and I've got all the notes. It's fine. Which is the same basic concept. I mean, admittedly done at a vastly different level, which is £30,000. I don't think certain parts of the industry are quite ready for their being. There's literally going to be a sort of pivot moment where all of a sudden the credible option, or one of the most credible options at pretty much any price point you can think of, is going to be a self-contained pair of powered or active loudspeakers. The groundwork is in place. The stones have started shifting. It hasn't quite happened yet, but I think everything is basically lined up for there to be a sort of cascade moment. And it when it comes, it's going to be quite, do you know what? I was about to use the word unprecedented there. I think we should ban the word unprecedented after the pandemic. I don't think people are ready for quite how profound a move it's going to be. And yeah, just watch this space. I would love to be sat here at the end of it going, I bloody told you so, I'm pointing to this, this, and this. We're not quite there yet, but we're so close. And it's just little, jungle telegraph elements from speaking to different manufacturers, speaking to different dealers, looking at certain bits of product technology under development. Yeah, it's going to be quite the shift, I suspect. And it also, in a longer term sense, has profound implications for who the major brands in this industry will be. Too early to start talking about that yet, but it does have some significant implications. The other prediction that I made at the start of 24 is that we were going to lose a music streaming service. This prediction, I am pleased to say, is false. Although I would say that Tidal laying off 25% of their employees does suggest that it's pretty tough out there, especially when you have two companies involved in it, I should say, who essentially can't go bust. They don't need to make any money. They don't actually need to be any good at it. They can't go bust. So everyone's clinging on. I may have to just reset that prediction for 2025 and just see how we get on. But yeah, those were the two things that I said were going to happen. One of them is work in progress. One of them, regrettably perhaps, is also work in progress. So that's what I said.
The active speaker side of thing is pretty interesting, Ed, because that could be it could be profound, or it could actually herald a backlash where people are like, no, actually, I want to stick with my box solutions, my separates, my hi-fi. Do you see that potentially um, being an issue as we move on?
In any movement of this nature, you get a pushback from a circle of people. I don't have access to enough retail data to make too confident a prediction on this. But no, there are certain manufacturers who are so good at what they do, and I think in a certain number of cases, critically, also offer all of the bits to do things the old way themselves, or at least part of a wider group, that they don't need to do anything too significant. But essentially, this comes down to cold logic here. Speaker manufacturers have suddenly realized they've been presented with an opportunity to not only be a significant chunk of someone's budget shared with electronics, but to actually muscle in and start nicking significant chunks of that budget that would otherwise be going to electronics. It doesn't take a true business guru to establish that a number of speaker companies are going to really go at this with everything that they've got, and that might mean amalgamating with certain electronics manufacturers, or it might mean bluntly speaking, just essentially taking a look at some off-the-shelf solutions to cover what they need doing, and then just develop their own technology in time as and when they need to. So yeah, it basically, it's a priceless opportunity for one part of the market to become bigger and more significant than it would otherwise have been, and I can't see them not doing everything they can to try and take that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, powered speakers, the thing here is that the technology is fantastic because it takes away a lot of the issues in terms of matching amplifiers
Yep.
to drivers and tuning of speakers to certain electronics and so on. It's all done as one product.
Yeah.
And that just makes it simple, but also guarantees, or should guarantee, that you are getting the best possible performance, best bang for buck with those components to that amplification.
Yes, that and then when you throw in the rise of readily accessible, easy to use, and extremely effective DSP and room optimization. We don't use the word correction, do we? It's room optimization. Yeah, I mean, essentially, there will always be people that love FAF. I mean, I do like a bit of FAF. You know, I've got the turntables to prove it, but most people are allergic to FAF, and this is FAF free. And if you've got it so you can have very, very hi-fi performance, and I need people to get it into their minds that what's being offered here is no less hi-fi than perhaps more traditional approaches. When you realize you can have a hi-fi solution which requires one or two main sockets and an internet connection, as opposed to lots and lots of boxes, many main sockets, cabling requirements, compatibility requirements, synergy requirements, a huge amount of the public, and I'm really hoping a new section of the public are going to go, do you know what, I'm in for a bit of that. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But everything logically points out to this being a very big deal. A lot of very strange things would have to happen for it not to be a big deal. Now, strange things happen all the time in hi-fi, so we'll see. But I think that we're in the middle of an ongoing seismic shift.
I was going to cover 2024 before we got into 2025, but we seem to have gone 2025 straight away. So let's stick with that, Ed.
Yeah.
What is your big prediction for this coming year then in terms of hi-fi? What is it that we're going to see? What's going to be the standout product?
Well, standout product. I want to be positive and I suppose more depressing about this. We're heading into some more constrained times fiscally. Now, this means two things. It usually means that at least a couple of companies go, do you know what? We can sacrifice a bit of margin here and there. We can just go that extra mile. We want to make a product that scoops up more sales, and we accept making slightly less per box in the pursuit of doing that. I don't want to give too much away. I've got one of those products on my rack at the moment, and the manufacturer who makes it is abundantly clear that it should cost X. They're actually doing it for Y because they know that they need to do this. We're going to see a couple of these, and at least one of them is going to be in with a shot of being product of the year. The less happy part of this is that in constrained times, I I think that it's not going to be brilliant news for everybody. There will be companies who are either, short on development resources, maybe not perhaps with the retail paths that they want, or retail paths that are being hit for other reasons. In these times, we do tend to lose one or two concerns. And when I say one or two concerns, obviously, small startups and passion projects, they come and go all the time. In these situations, often we can find ourselves losing someone a bit more sort of widely known, and it might be more surprising from the outside. So these trading conditions bring out the best and the worst in the industry, or it gives it the best and the worst opportunities. So we should see something which is outstanding value because someone has genuinely risen to the challenge, and regrettably we'll probably see at least one organization that we have reviewed and are relatively familiar with regrettably calling it a day. I'm not going to make a prediction as to who that is. That would be in appalling taste and possibly litigious. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting, and in both a good and bad sense, an interesting year to be trading in, and it will lead to both brilliance and a bit of disappointment at the same time.
And vinyl, is it still going to be continuing that climb? I mean, they did predict that it was going to dip away and fall away at this point, and those predictions don't seem to have come true at this
I think
point.
it's
Still seems to be a growth
leveled
area.
for sure. And it's matured into something where, broadly speaking, the number of absolutely new people with no records to their name coming through the door has dipped, but there's still an enormous amount of latent expansion from converting people who bought a sort of suitcase style portable player into something which is, more serious hardware. And as you know, with vinyl, serious hardware goes all the way up to think of a number and double it. So there's lots of internal movement. The biggest risk to the vinyl boom is actually, and perhaps always has been, the people who make the records, the record labels. There seems to be this, we've suffered from reduction in income across other paths of, other mediums and so on and so forth. Let's rinse vinyl and rinse live music for all it's humanly worth. And there comes a point where, when you then add that to increased production costs and all the other expenses that are fundamentally endemic to human existence at this point, that people go, do you know what? I've got less money to spend. I'm not doing this anymore. And there are certain points I see for release price for single albums and double albums that psychologically the European market has, and I include the UK in the European market, there's a point that the UK and Europe won't go past happily, and there's definitely a point that the US market won't go past happily, and record labels are flirting with that at their own risk. It comes a point where you'll go to the effort of getting extremely hard to secure print press time, and no one ends up buying the result. And if you do that, you will make a huge loss on it, and you'll then start to get a bit disenfranchised, and at the same time the public still won't be buying the record. So the biggest risk isn't at a hardware level, it's at a software level, and it's not an area I'm familiar with enough to point particular fingers at, but the price of some new records has been frankly offensive, especially from major acts, whereas actually other acts have been very sensible about what they've priced their material at, and I think have been rewarded with decent sales to which they've made some money on. So yeah, we'll see. It's out of I would argue at this point, it's out of the hardware manufacturer's hands. They've done everything that needs to. You can buy credible vinyl replay solutions from a little over £200 and up, and that's brilliant news. And it now just falls to the people that make the software to keep their side of the bargain.
Yeah. Streaming, it's been a big area of the market. We've seen lots and lots and lots of different products, quite diverse products hitting the market. Are we going to see that settling down in 2025? Are we going to see a particular trend or a particular approach taking precedence?
I think the nature of what we're going to see now, I mean, I make this prediction at my own risk. It's going to be incremental, And when you've got companies at the affordable end of the market, the Wims, the Blue Sounds, Cambridge Audio to an extent, they're churning out products at under £500 a box, which offer a peerless user experience. And in the case of the Wim products, does everything you could ask it to do. You'd have to be brave to want to step into that part of the market. And it does mean that if you make an expensive streamer that isn't as good to use as those affordable ones, it's going to be a tough sell. So essentially, a couple of relatively affordable brands have carved big chunks out of what can be done. And I think what you see in the next couple of years anyway, unless a genuinely unexpected disruptive new arrival turns up, I think you're just going to see sort of variations on the same theme. The other thing, of course, I didn't really want to talk about him in a podcast because he's not necessarily something we normally talk about or want to talk about. We have to aim off weirdly for Donald Trump. Essentially, if some of this tariff business comes through, this makes certain products much more expensive in the USA. Whether that means they then double down and focus on Europe, which then has further distortions, I don't know, or whether some of them call it a day or choose to do different things, I don't know. But I don't want to say that it's going to have no effect at all, because I think it will. So yeah, at the affordable end, streaming and certain other parts may yet be shaped by what goes on in this part of things as well. So that's, I'm afraid, something I have absolutely no historical data for, so I don't know how it's going to go, but I suspect it's going to have an effect after one form or another. But in terms of going back to streaming, I think what we've got at the moment is a fairly compelling set of packages. I can't see anything radically tearing up the rule book. The only thing I would say is that there's another product here for review. Review's been written, it's going up and will appear in December or January, which has an interesting way of adding multi-channel capability to what is fundamentally otherwise a streaming-based offering. I don't want to give too much away because it messes with the review, but that's possibly something that we're going to see other brands emulate as well. And what effect that has on multi-channel, I have no idea.
So Ed, another thing that we have seen over the past year, and I presume we're going to see into 2025, is the adoption or increased adoption of eARC, HDMI eARC on these products. Is that going to, I guess the only place it can go now is further down the ranges and price points, because I think most from a certain price point, most products now come with eARC.
Yes. It's more, in some ways, ironically, it's more prevalent on affordable product because HDMI ARC is more prevalent on affordable product. But eARC is now, when something new comes through the door, it's more likely to be eARC than it is ARC. And in good news, I'm dragging myself kicking and screaming into this decade, and will shortly have the ability to test eARC as well. So we should start to be able to do some more interesting things there. This is just logical evolution. HDMI ARC has been a really useful addition to two-channel audio. And eARC offers, fundamentally linear benefits over and above ARC, and it makes sense for manufacturers, especially given that very few people are developing this code themselves. So if you're buying the hardware in, I dare say that it's fundamentally going to be a case they're just being, before too long, it may already be the case that there's more eARC chipsets to choose from than ARC. So you're just going to see things update naturally over time. But yeah, it's, to repeat myself again, it's not the performance benefit over optical when we're talking about two-channel audio. There's nothing significant to be gained in performance terms. It's just the seamless, it just works style compatibility that means that a whole household will use the product as an adjunct to their television without thinking about it, because they don't have to think about it. Yeah. It is about this democratization of capability and asking nothing of the people using the product. And I think that's a big deal. And yeah, we're only going to see more of it. I've tested more eARC capable product in the back half of the year than at any stage before, and it's increasing at an almost exponential level. So yeah, it's there's just going to be more and more of it, and I think that's an extremely good thing. It just means more flexibility and more effectiveness for consumers.
And when it works, it's great.
Mm.
When it doesn't work, it's frustrating. And if you're somebody like me who swaps their TV every week
Yes.
for a new model coming through, it can get quite infuriating,
I
to be
can
honest.
imagine. And it must be said that not all HDMI implementations are equal in a
Yeah,
two-channel sense. I mean, Cambridge Audio still, if it was an award, Cambridge Audio would get best HDMI ARC implementation that I've tested. Um, a number of companies would be duking it out for worst. But yeah, it's not, all things aren't equal, but it just, when I compare it to switch the product on independent of the television, select an optical input if you had a
yeah.
different input selected before, then control volume on a remote, which is not the television remote, HDMI ARC just dismantles that, and eARC offers more potential in that sort of direction.
Okay, before we wrap up, highlights of 2024. What were your product highlights of the year, Ed? We did the Editor's Choice Awards,
Yes.
and that's our picks for the very best of products. But we're not just talking about the very best of products. We're talking about products that were maybe millimeters towards getting over the line for that spot. So there's lots of great products that have come
Yes.
through. What were your highlights of the year?
I've picked out 4 products that, for different reasons, weren't really in with they missed out on Editor's Choice. And there were many more excellent products that could have made it, but these 4 are just highlights for me. And the good news is that 3 of those 4 come in at under £1,000, but one of them doesn't. We'll start with that one to begin with. Dynaudio Contour Legacy. I was very, very lucky to get a go with the only European review pair of these. And they were discounted from the awards because they fundamentally failed to meet the availability criteria. Although I was taken aside by a dealer recently who politely but firmly pointed out, I made it sort of implied that they're all sold. They are not all sold. They are sold through to dealers. And he was very clear that he has 2 pairs ready to go. I can't name the dealer, he hasn't advertised. But they are in stores. If you've liked the review and you've got £10,000 burning a hole in your pocket, they are good to go. There are still some available, and just do so. This product just combined absolutely outstanding sonic performance with an ability to make me happy just by looking at them that is tremendously special. They were incredible things to spend time with. They are a really cleverly worked combination of nostalgia and contemporary engineering that was peerlessly executed in a product that isn't overlarge for a UK room, is fairly room friendly and fairly easy to drive. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute I had with the Contour Legacy. They are truly outstanding in every way. Now, with the expensive and aspirational item out of the way, the other 3, the first of the more affordable items, the HiFi Zen Blue version 3. This is a Bluetooth DAC, but unlike the previous V1 and V2s, they've added some extra inputs. So as well as being the best Bluetooth implementation anywhere, and I'm going to use the absolute here because it really is, it does every form of Bluetooth you can think of and some versions that you can't. It does it in a 2-way sense, so it can transmit to wireless headphones. It tells you what it's doing and it tells you how it's doing it. It is a Rosetta Stone of Bluetooth and it is peerless, but they've added some extra inputs so it can, handle your television signal, do all sorts of other things. So if you're just adding limited additional digital capability to a hi-fi system that doesn't have it, or is like CD based or something, it's unbelievable for 300 quid. It's only that the Wim Ultra is even more unbelievable that the hi-fi missed out on the award. It's unbelievably good. I keep saying unbelievable because it is. It's ridiculous and a genuine pleasure to use. So this was another highlight. Then we move into the realms of aesthetics. The Ellipson Planet Special Edition. All Ellipson planets look pretty bonkers, but the special edition in a green finish that Ellipson calls Uranus Cloud, because they apparently have no sense of irony, or they have a very well-developed sense of irony. They're not clear on this. This is another product which, as well as sounding really good, and I promise you it sounds really good, is just the perfect antidote to the argument that everything that we do is a predictable wooden box. It all looks the same. It's looked the same for 60 years and all the rest of that. They are fabulous. And I mean that in all senses of the word. I mean, I really should get Craig Revel Horwood to say they're fabulous, to really emphasize the fabulousness of them. But they just sounded brilliant. They looked brilliant. They're beautifully made. They are hi-fi as a talking point at a terrestrial price. And that really is something that should be celebrated and enjoyed. And I think that a number of people will buy them because they like the looks and then be absolutely blown away by how good they sound, because they sound superb. And then another thing where looks is an integral part of what it does, but the sheer insanity of what it does was even more the case. The Audio-Technica Soundburger, the most affordable record player we tested all year. The most niche product I tested all year. It took 3,000 words to explain why, not so much what it does, but why. And I have no need for a portable record player, Phil. I don't go that far, and I'm a bit sniffy about carrying records around when I do. I still want one. It just, again, made me happy simply interacting with it and using it. And if you are the sort of person that does barbecues out in public spaces, you know, goes to the park and stuff, if you want to outpose every other human being in a park, you know, they've brought their Bluetooth speaker along, you rock up with a portable record player, which you then wirelessly sync to your Bluetooth speaker, you've got everyone else beat, unless they've also brought a Soundburger with them. It is, again, the fun side of, you know, of this industry, but combined with some genuinely impressive engineering to make it work at all. I covet one. I still haven't completely ruled out buying one, even though I'm going to break the fourth wall here. Normally speaking, if you ring a manufacturer and say, can I buy one of these products? There's an unspoken understanding that some form of trade accommodation might take place here. Audio-Technica basically turned around and said, no, we can sell every single one of these that we make. If you want to buy one, you can go to our online store and bloody well buy it yourself. And I'm still not ruling out actually doing that, even though in some ways that hurt. So no, that was the fourth. And again, well under £1,000, 230 quid. So brilliance and excitement and interactive joy is not the preserve of the high end. And this year really, really demonstrated that with bells on. Those are the four products that stood out, and three of them, as I say, well under £1,000.
And one of them had burger in the title.
And written on the product. Let's be clear about this. It has Soundburger written on it.
Excellent.
So, you know, what more could you ask for?
So, Ed, thank you very much for your predictions for 2025 and, of course, the product highlights of 2024. And that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe and, of course, like the video as well. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.